Hello everyone, my name is James Williams. I'm the Director of Programs with MEF and welcome to another session during our MEF Connects Innovators event. I have a great pleasure in moderating a panel, and today we'll be looking at the world of SMS and its security and how to fight fraud in it and innovation therein. So I'm pleased to be joined coming up by three people who are well known across the industry. Before I get into that, just a quick message from the organisers, please. If anyone would like to connect to any attendees, that can be done very, very easily by using the attendee connection tab. So please do that. Now, without much further ado, I'd like to introduce the three participants I have on my panel. Today, I have Jason Lum from IMI Mobile. He's SVP Commercial. Hey, Jason, good to see you.
Hi, James. You all right?
Fantastic. We have Anurag Agarwal. Anurag is Director of Messaging Services with Tata Communications. Lovely seeing you, Anurag, and thank you for joining so late.
Thank you so much. Look forward to the conversation.
Yeah, it's going to be good. And last but absolutely by no means least, we have Mr. Mike Round, who is the Independent Secretariat. Basically, he manages everything to do with the UK Sender Registry ID, along with Nikki Bailey, who is on the operational side of things. So welcome as well, Mike. Hi.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
No problem. So the UK Sender Registry ID is a fantastic initiative, but let's talk about why it's here. Now, SMS, the concept of SMS came from the mid-1980s. SMS was first properly, truly launched with the first real SMS on December the 3rd, 1992, here in the UK. And since then, it's really grabbed the consciousness of a generation. And it's a channel billions of us use every day. We heard from Pamela from Omdia in the analyst presentation a bit earlier that SMS really isn't going anywhere. And by that, I mean, it's not disappearing. So rumors of its demise are very, very wrong. We heard from Pamela that it was her view and her company's view that SMS, in terms of course, A to P SMS, so business to consumer, business to business SMS, will be very, very strong for the next 5 years plus. I remember 5 years ago being told it would be strong for the next 5 years plus. So I think we can probably safely say it's going to be strong for the next decade for sure. Now, the reason the registry exists is because of the issue of fraud. And there's something called phishing. Now, Jason, for the uninitiated, could you just explain in simple language what SMS phishing is, please?
Yes, absolutely. So I think we've all received many phishing emails, but when we receive those via SMS, we generally call them smishing. So it's normally some kind of activity which includes a call to action to incentivize a citizen, the receiver of the message, to do something that will enable the fraudsters to, in effect, steal your personal details. So they may take you to a landing page on a website, which will request that you put in your credentials for a bank or for a mobile phone operator or any other kind of service you may procure. But they also might give you a phone number, some kind of urgent call to action, the same kind of process you see in an email or an ad hoc phone call you would receive from a fraudster. It's the same process, just on an SMS.
Thank you. Now, Anurag, we've been hearing from previous discussions during the day that there's a lot of innovation in the area of fraud. So why has there been this general uptick in the area of fraud? What's bringing that about generally?
You're asking why is there more fraud happening nowadays? Yeah, I guess that's to do with the fact that SMS is actually one of the most ubiquitous form of communication between an enterprise and an end customer. What typically that leads to is that fraudsters see this as one of the most widely accessible channel which can be used. And sadly so that, if you look at the attention span and the use case of an SMS, you just flip it open, you see it quickly, you're often on the go, and you just see it in a rush. It's not like some sort of a legal document that you're signing that you would actually spend time in reading. And hence the chances of fraud occurring via the SMS communication mechanism are extremely high. It's so high and it's so rampant in India that literally Netflix came out with a whole documentary. There was a web series which was released about a year and a half ago that actually featured that some people sitting in the rural parts of India, literally they showed under a tree, they were able to generate these fraudulent SMS and what Jason referred to as smishing. They were actually able to impersonate one of the biggest e-wallets in India and were able to fraud consumers of millions and millions of rupees in very short time spans. So I guess it's the fact that SMS is such a ubiquitous form and such an easy format for people to access, which is really the incentive for a fraudster to go about it.
Yeah, I think we've all seen how so many people have been thrust online. They may have made their way online within the next few years, but because physical premises have been shut down, online has become the only way for people to buy many goods and indeed services. So you've got a lot of uninitiated people operating now online in the world of mobile. So I think they're richer pickings for potential fraudsters. And of course, we've got to use the word innovation, because it's not just the good side, the Robin Hood side, who are innovative and fighting fraud. Fraud itself is exceedingly innovative. Mike, I'd like to bring you into the discussion. Can you just give us a little bit of background, please, as to the history of the UK Sender Registry ID, where the idea came from, and indeed who were the first people to really push for its implementation?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
So the registry project came about. It was probably nearly 3 years ago now, and it's been an industry collaboration between the UK Finance, who represents obviously a lot of the banks, MEF, aggregators, and the mobile networks, along with the National Cybersecurity Centre. So I think, you know, the great and the good got together to to discuss the problem, and I think there was a clear desire for industry to come up with a solution rather than it be a regulatory-led solution. And the output from that really was that MEF picked up the challenge of building the processes and ultimately a registry platform to try and address the problem. So initially this started off with a small number of merchants, and we had a couple of government agencies. We had the HMRC and the DVLA, and 8 of the major banking groups as trialists for this service, and subsequently we've increased that number of trial merchants to about double that number now.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, Mike, but actually what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to share my screen and just show everyone where we are actually with the Sender Registry ID in terms of the number of trialists. So just wondering, can you see the screen here?
Not yet.
Okay, can't see yet.
Up now, yeah.
There we go. Perfect. Yeah, just take us through this, because you've got 3 different types. You've got merchants, MNOs, and messaging providers. I think it's fairly self-explanatory, but you can see here, there's certainly more than 8 now.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's, I mean, key to start with is to get the MNOs to cooperate and to work, and then to identify their messaging providers, and we've got a list of the participating messaging providers there. That's not a complete list, I would say, but we've got some of the main providers there. And in terms of the merchants, the solution that we've got in place is funded by the merchants, the banks who participate in this. Not all merchants want to be publicised, so as James has said, there are others aside from the ones that are on that list. But the situation now is that we have 5 government agencies, including the Cabinet Office, the National Health Service, which are really important clients, obviously. And we were heavily involved in supporting the COVID-19 issues of nearly a year ago now, which led us to get the government account. But in terms of the way the solution that we've got we've taken a very sort of simplistic solution, which means that it's really, really easy to roll out. There's no software or anything like that to be installed on either any of the merchants or the aggregators or the MNOs. It's purely based on accessing a registry with a username and password. And the good thing about that is it means that if we get a new merchant who comes along and wants to join, we can get them up and running really quickly. As an example of that, we had a new merchant came along about 3 weeks ago, and we got them up and online in about 2 hours. And they were suffering a massive attack at the time. And I'm pleased to say that on a Friday afternoon, we got them onto the registry, and over the weekend, the problems fell away. The problems aren't going to disappear, but I think our objective here is to significantly reduce the impact. And I think it's probably worth saying that we frequently get asked about is the solution 100% effective? And the answer is no, it's not. But it doesn't need to be, and it needs to be effective enough to make the fraudsters change their behaviour and look somewhere else. And if it does that, then it's effective.
Yeah, Mike, thank you very much. Yeah, Jason, coming back to you, you described smishing for us, you explained smishing for us, but what are the key risks of it to the average person on the street out there? How would that manifest itself? What would be the net result?
Net result, I guess if I roll back to when we started this project, getting all the MNOs in a room and getting, what was the original objective here? This was about, protecting citizens from fraud. That's what this was about initially. And the solution we have now that Mike described is great. And that does that in a really great way. And that is really the impact on all of us in the fact that, the merchants that were just shown on that list have saved millions of pounds for their business and impacted thousands. I don't know the exact number of consumers or citizens that have been protected, but it is significant who haven't lost their savings, who haven't had to go through the trauma of trying to be compensated for loss of money that they've been stolen by fraudsters. It has been a challenge though for everyone involved, be they the merchants or the aggregators. I know for ourselves, there's a lot of challenges in setting up the rules and the processes behind it, and some of the challenges that Mike spoke about. A new merchant who came online a couple of weeks ago on Friday afternoon, and the controls were implemented on the Friday afternoon, which meant that for that particular merchant in the finance industry, their attack on their business almost, I won't say disappeared, but almost disappeared overnight. Because they signed up, they understood they needed a protection to help themselves and their customers, and they did that in almost an instant. That was just brilliant to see it so quickly. I think that there are still a lot to go in terms of everyone getting involved, making sure that it isn't just a small list of, call them tier one aggregators and other deliverers or service providers. Everyone needs to do their part to make sure that they're protecting citizens, because it is you, it is me, it is our family, it is our friends who could be adversely affected by this and lose money because they're conned by a fraudster. And so that actually is up to all of us. It's all of our obligations to do the right thing and make sure we can protect each other.
Fantastic. Now, we have a question from the audience, from Ramon Green. And Anurag, I'd just like to ask you, what does the actual registry do? What are the basic mechanics behind it? What's the concept behind it?
I think this would be more for Mike or Jason. I think this is the UK registry which he's focusing on.
Okay, go for it.
I'm happy to answer that. The way the UK registry process works is it allows a merchant, let's say a bank, which is mainly what you saw listed there, or UK government, to register particular sender IDs, so who the message is from, whether that be NHS, Barclays, etc. And they can say what their supply chain will be. So let's pick something at random. HSBC sending a message as HSBC might only be allowed by a couple of aggregators to deliver those messages. But actually, there's other sender IDs that fraudsters try to use where they won't get into the conversation thread, but they try to use H58C, for example. Put spaces, put dashes, put other variants around it. So it's not just the original sender ID that you want to control with a limited set of tier 1 aggregators. It's also the fraudulent sender IDs. And sorry, I guess I talk about the sender IDs in quite a generic approach here, because in the UK, it's not like the US. The US is numeric only, South Africa, numeric only. The UK, like a lot of other territories around the world, allows alpha sender IDs. And so that pros and cons both ways, I know. Yeah, that's what we have in the UK. So that's what we're trying to protect, to make sure we get the best possible solution for those brands. I don't know if you've got anything else you'd like to add to that, Mike.
I think that covers it quite well, and I think you've made the point really that there's kind of the way that the registry works. There's two lists that we have within there. We have a list of protected sender IDs, which are the ones that are protected, ones that are provided by the participating merchants. They're the genuine ones that are used by the brands, and we collect those and store those within the registry, along with and we monitor the routing of those. And then there's a second list, which is all the fraudulent variants with the misspellings and the use of special characters and things like that, either that we've seen in examples of fraud, or you can just work them out, as Jason said there. The use of numerics instead of letters, etc. So we can put all those into a denied list. And basically that list is circulated to all the aggregators with a request to just block these, because they're only ever used for fraud. And that in itself was one of the first sort of quick wins that we had with the registry, to get that list out and to significantly, to block thousands upon thousands of messages using those fraudulent lists. And it's had quite a dramatic effect in skewing the way that the fraudsters behave. So generally speaking, they'll start off by trying to do direct spoofing by use of the brand's genuine sender ID, and if they can't do that, then they'll try a fraudulent variant. And if they get blocked doing that, then they'll use other methods, and they'll try using SIM farms and long numbers and stuff like that, which is still a problem, but it's not quite as dangerous to a consumer because it's not put into a conversation thread on their phone. And just coming back on the point that we were talking about earlier, about the benefits. I think we've had some recent examples where some of the merchants who have been participating in the registry have come back to us and said, one of them said that their losses had reduced by £1.5 million across the year through use of the registry. And I think we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that these, at the end of the day, these are ordinary individuals who are getting robbed by these fraudsters. The average loss, according to the banks, is about £5,000 a time. So it's not an insignificant amount of money. But having said that, that's the average. It can vary enormously, and generally speaking, it's everything that the customer has in their account when they do get robbed.
That's really severe, and that's a massive impact for someone. Now, I've worked a lot myself with mobile operators around the world, helping them monetize SMS transactions that make fraud. But I think the most important thing to do is to do so, but without stopping genuine traffic. Because if you do stop genuine traffic, you just disturb the whole ecosystem. You can severely impact user experience. And you can, of course, annoy enterprises who, at the end of the day, are paying all our bills because they're the ones initiating this content. So, Jason, how do we stop within the registry genuine traffic from being blocked? How does that work?
Stopping genuine traffic is quite hard at times. I think the approach that has been taken and has worked really well, that Mike and the team, Nikki and the team there at MEF have led, has been around taking a bit of a cautious approach around not wanting to block everything straight away, not trying to block supply chains, and together with that, the monitoring by the tier one aggregators. You know, there's a lot of work that goes on in my team, and I know the other tier one aggregator is exactly the same, where they're monitoring not only the traffic from their customers, but trying to interpret it if the traffic is legitimate from their customers and sometimes from their customers. And so if you can imagine a brand might have a marketing agency who send their messages to an SMS aggregator who send them to a tier one aggregator to actually be terminated with the mobile operators. So there's quite a long supply chain, and taking a cautious approach that we get this right has been really important in this process. It has meant, I think, for everyone involved that the timescales are probably longer than what we may have envisaged at the start of this process. But actually, it's a very careful balance of allowing legitimate traffic through and blocking fraudulent traffic. So you want to block fraud as quickly as you can, but where there's a likelihood that is something fraud, isn't it, you need to do that assessment together with Mike and the team and possibly the merchants or possibly the operators directly with their fraud and security team. So quite a lot of people involved in getting that right, but I believe that it has paid off for all of our benefits.
Yeah, it can be tough because you take an example I know Mike often uses in presentations is Nationwide, the brand Nationwide. It's a building society, financial services institution here in the UK, but Nationwide, as you can imagine from that description, is used by a whole host of other companies. So great care, I can understand, is taken with the registry in doing that. Now, Anurag, if you could just click your fingers and overnight see the UK Sender Registry move to India, would that solve quite a few issues, do you think, if we could replicate that overnight around the world?
So I think I clicked my fingers quite a while ago, and it's a good thing that the Indian regulator, in fact, was involved to some extent, and we have what is called the blockchain solution, which is already implemented in India. We call it DLT, the distributed ledger technology. At least as per what I understand, it's the first of its kind around the world. So we are actually market leading and market shaping from that to that extent. So we've actually, the Indian operators have deployed a blockchain based system wherein all the operators have deployed a platform that is linked to each other via the blockchain technology. And each of these operators acts as a gatekeeper for the entire ecosystem. So an enterprise can go and register on the blockchain system of any of these operators. And via that platform, they would be able to whitelist the specific sender IDs that they plan to use. There is so there are like a 4-step process which they're doing, and it's quite amazing. I would still say it's a bit ambitious, but it's pretty much on the target. Firstly, an entity has to register and get an entity license or an entity ID. So if you are not registered on the platform, on any of the operators, if you're not registered, you can't send an SMS, period. So you have to be a registered entity. Then you have to register your sender ID specific to that particular entity. So that's why if I take HSBC example, as Jason said, they would HSBC India Limited would have to register as an entity and would have to register HSBC as a sender ID for India. Post that, now's where the interesting part comes in. They're getting into content template registration, wherein entities have to give at least like a 60% template format of how they what will be the message content like. And these templatized formats are the only types of traffic which will be allowed. So that's like a third layer of protection. And eventually what we are getting onto, which is the best part of it, which is, I say less to do with the fraudulent part, but more to do with the pesky spam traffic part. And that's asking for consent. So after entity, header, and template, we are down to the point where the end user has the control of managing also. So there's a plan to have a dashboard wherein the user can log in and see all the entities with whom he has implicitly or explicitly provided a consent to send to receive SMS traffic, A2P traffic. So from that way, this is exactly what we are expecting as the most ideal solution. As I understand now, more countries, I believe Israel, for example, I've heard, are also getting into this blockchain-based technology. So I do believe that this is now becoming um, the next generation innovative idea. We are on an innovators forum. So I think this is the next level of innovation which operators are now getting into, and this should help the end subscribers and the enterprises tremendously if it's done through and through just the way it's planned to be done.
Okay, so I think we here in the UK have a lot to learn clearly as well. So it's not one solution that's going to solve and be the silver bullet to solve this. But Jason, sorry,
I just had one thing to add. I agree with you, Anurag, around going through those steps. I think that what we've done in the UK in terms of the same as you've done in India, which is around controlling the sender ID, is the first thing to step in the process. And I think, I'm sure everyone agrees on this call, managing an allow and a block list that is made up of 11 characters as an alpha, or a bit longer if it's numeric, is actually fairly easy compared to getting into content control. That is quite complicated. Fraudsters use lots of different methods, different encoding methods, multi-part, all the usual rotating URLs, rotating sender IDs. They'll try everything and they'll jumble them all up together and try and get their message out to defraud people. And so actually that challenge of controlling content is going to take some important step changes, I think, in the industry for us to get there.
It is.
And I think we're all doing it. Anurag's doing it. We're doing it, IMI as well, to a degree, but there's a lot that could be improved there to get that position Jason, better for consumers.
Yeah. Right. I totally agree, Jason. And in fact, if I may say, there was a panel a couple of months ago which said the fight against fraud. I said very emphatically, we can never win the fight against fraud. It's a never-ending. It's a living, breathing organism which cannot be killed. And I'd say hats off to fraudsters, because they are the actual innovators who are able to bring about new forms of innovation to constantly stay a step ahead. But I feel if we are able to at least at max stay a step behind, or at least we are toe to toe with them, that's still that's like more than half the battle won. So I think yes, it's an ongoing process, and fraud will never eliminate. And these processes are very cumbersome. Just to let you know, the deadline for enterprises to register templates has been delayed a couple of times already. So yes, we understand it's a fairly ambitious task, but as we start moving towards these mechanisms, I'm sure somewhere we'll be able to reach at least one step behind a fraudster. Maybe.
Not bad. We're running out of time very soon. I think we can squeeze it another 2 or 3 minutes. With the four of us here, we could talk about this for a very, very long time. But Mike, I know you're looking to take this UK Sender Registry ID show on the road. If you just explain very quickly, if you can, if you're allowed to, what countries you're looking to do.
In terms of other countries, I mean, we're working with a couple of other territories at the moment. I can say that we're working with Singapore at the moment. That's progressing very well, and also with the Republic of Ireland. We've also got some good conversations going with some European countries. And actually, this very week, I had I've got a call with another country who've got all their all their M&Os lined up and want to talk to us about another registry there as well. So can't actually give any more names at the moment, but there's certainly quite a lot of interest. And I think the fact that we can actually roll something out and get something up and running really quickly, without, as I said before, without any sort of software integration or anything like that, is quite attractive, really. It's not going to be 100% solution, but if it can be, if it can significantly reduce, then I think that's the benefit. So yeah, it's it's a low cost, easy to implement solution. So from that perspective, I think it's quite good. And just a final point really on Anurag's point really there, that absolutely right. It's the fraudsters that are constantly morphing the problem. So I think, from our perspective, having the ability to change the solution and to add extra functionality where we can to help identify the problems and to get on top of that is key.
Thank you. Everyone, I think our time is up. So just to summarize, the UK Sender Registry ID is a fantastic initiative. It's definitely been looked at to take the show on the road. It's not the only thing. It's not the silver bullet that will totally eliminate fraud. I think we've established here with the panel members that fraud can never be eliminated in SMS channels. And I think in general, because as long as humans remain innovative, that innovation can be turned to negative things as well as positive. Just look at the Nobel Peace Prize and the origins of that. Yeah, thank you very much. Anurag, thank you for joining us from India. Jason from IMI Mobile. And well, you're not India, the company, you are Tata Communications, Anurag, but you're in India at the moment. And Mike, thank you very much as well for joining and explaining a huge amount about the registry. And to all of you viewing, thank you very much indeed for tuning in. And all the best from MEF. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.